I never said this would be easy. I officially started the first of my 15 monthly musicals this Thursday morning. And it's definitely not the most intuitive thing to do, but I am doing it. I said I would do it, and I'm pretty sure I will get into the swing of it. My attempt to write a musical that somehow falls under the lesbian vampire romance genre, while also including clowns, has proven to be a challenge, but far from an impossibility. And I'm just trying to get the story right now. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I've been trying to build this plot, create the characters, and write the first song. Welcome to the beginning of my absolutely insane 15-month endeavor. My name is Madeline Skye, and I'm writing musicals. Da 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 da. So where do I begin? As I explained in my last video, most of these musicals will be based in a specific genre, as outlined in John Truby's book, The Anatomy of Genres. But there are only 14 of those listed in the book, and I said I'd give myself a freebie for the first musical. So on Wednesday afternoon, shortly after posting my last video, I put some prompts up on my Instagram story. In these prompts, I asked my followers to give me 4 things: a genre, a character name, a location, and a line of dialogue that I have to use somewhere in the script. Seeing everyone's answers was actually really fun for me. Granted, the first 10 or so responses to each prompt were just my sister spamming me, but I definitely learned a lot from seeing what people put. Firstly, my sister is an expert troll. Secondly, I probably should have specified what I meant by genre, since some people put music genres and some people put literary genres. I was more going for the latter, but I accepted the others. Third, one person I know likes Five Nights at Freddy's a little too much, as every single answer that she put was related to that franchise. And lastly, asking for lines of dialogue leads to some of the most unhinged shit you've ever seen, especially when your friends are actual weirdos and you wouldn't have them any other way. And for the people I didn't know as well, y'all are freaks. Legitimately though, if you responded to those prompts, you're a star and I appreciate you so much. So Thursday morning, I put all the different categories and responses on a wheel of names. You know, those things that 21st century school teachers use to call on students so they don't look like they have favorites. Also, I shouldn't say that I put all of them on. I did keep off a few that I thought maybe wouldn't be totally appropriate, or it was clear that the poster didn't quite understand the prompt. Or if it was half the things that my sister posted, because 1, I didn't want her to have too much of an advantage on the wheel, and 2, some of her suggestions were truly bad. So here I was, all set to write a checks notes musical in the combined genre of lesbian vampire romance and clowns, with an exclamation point, with 4 characters named Gregory, Melody, Issa, and Spoon, set at a circus in New Hampshire, with the lines, "It's as American as elbow grease," and "Must we have this argument right now?" Easy peasy. The first thing I did was research anything significant about New Hampshire. I'm sorry to any New Hampshireans, I know nothing about your state. Apparently, it was the first of the 13 colonies to establish an independent government from Britain, so that's interesting. But I couldn't think of a way to use that in a lesbian vampire musical with clowns, so I moved past that. New Hampshire is also home to the White Mountains and Mount Washington. I love nature just in general, but also when a story is set somewhere with a lot of nature, I get sucked in very easily. Plus, something called the White Mountains sounds like a perfect place for a vampire circus. Now, at this point, I have to be wary. I've worked on a musical where someone goes on a journey hiking in the mountains before, so I had to be careful to not make it too similar. The problem about that musical is that we never had a strong enough reason for the protagonist to go on this hike, so I knew that my protagonist would have to have a very, very strong want. I started putting pen to paper and saying things out loud so I could make sense of what I was doing. My fiance was also in the room, so I threw a lot of ideas at him too, but mostly he let me talk at him rather than giving me a lot of suggestions.
Do you not have opinions?
I would need more time to process it.
Okay, fair enough. This is more for me to just spout things off.
Thursday was mostly writing down a very rough draft of the plot. Here's what I came up with at the time. Keep in mind, this is very subject to change. Issa gets dragged by her brother Gregory, who's been trying to get Issa to go to the White Mountains since her girlfriend Melody disappeared a year ago. Issa only wants Melody back and truly believes, naively, that she will find her alive. Gregory hopes this trip will quell this belief and she can move on. When they start the trek, they keep hearing laughter in the trees. Initially, they agree to follow the laughter until Greg gets ahead and comes face to face with Melody. He runs the gamut of emotions when he sees her, but she tells him to turn back. When Issa returns, Melody has disappeared. Issa stays emboldened to follow the laughs, but Greg starts to pull back, scared of Melody's warning. Issa tries to get Greg to tell her what's wrong, and they are quickly interrupted. A very pale clown named Spoon greets them and says that they're coming with him. He walks them to a clearing where a tent is pitched. There are many pale clowns and other circus performers who turn to watch with hunger in their eyes. Spoon and the others introduce them to the circus and how they're all undead but friendly. Melody appears, angry that Greg brought Issa. Issa is overjoyed that Melody is alive and tries to reconnect. Melody admits she still loves her, but that she needs to go. While the circus performers won't turn her into a vampire, the head vampire who turned all of them would. He made the circus for his own entertainment. Turning the page. In the time that Issa and Melody have this romantic moment, Spoon has taken Greg into the circus and tied him to a chair. A series of circus performances begins, and Spoon relays to the cast what their voiceless leader wants them to do. They get closer and closer to killing and turning Gregory, but Issa appears with Melody just in time. Issa pops Greg free of the chair in the chaos, but turns to find the performers with a stake about to go through Melody's heart. The leader, through Spoon, tells them that Issa has to choose. If she leaves with Greg, Melody dies for real. If she goes with Melody, Greg will be turned. The musical ends on a cliffhanger. So at this point, it's a solid idea, but there's a lot more clarity needed. What does Issa really want? How do I give her more agency? What is her personality? What is Gregory's role? What is Melody's role in the vampire circus? Is there too much going on? How do I simplify this plot? After I wrote this down and started asking these questions, I decided to try to answer some of them by writing down details about the characters and sketching them. I am not good at drawing, just so we're perfectly clear. Here's what I came up with. Issa, hopeful to a fault, believes nothing can go truly wrong, still repressing the sadness from Melody's disappearance, loves romance novels because of the sex and happy endings, wears impractical fantasy clothes, hoping to look right when swept off her feet. Gregory was Melody's best friend, dealt with her death differently than Issa, in that he went straight into depression. He accepted her death and doesn't want to talk about it. He thinks his sister's hope is harmful, buries himself in studying to be a nurse. Melody was a literature major with a punk band in college, met Issa at one of their concerts, loved art, so she went on a writing retreat into the mountains and never came back. Now she's a vampire, but she wants to protect Issa. She's also the escape artist in the circus. And lastly, Spoon. He's a vampire clown who acts as the mouthpiece for the lead vampire, over the top and seemingly friendly. So already these characters were starting to make more sense in context. I learned a lot about our main character, Issa, especially with the description, she loves romance novels because of the sex and happy endings. I love that phrase, sex and happy endings. It is such a clear motivation for someone who has lost their love and is reeling in delusion. Also, do people on the internet still just say intimacy or adult fun time? As someone who, prior to meeting my partner, watched romantic movies and TV shows just to feel like I was being whisked away into some wild dramatic love story, this part of her character really reached me. When you're alone, you can turn to fantasy to try to bridge that gap. So that's who I decided Issa was. A girl so in denial of her grief that she insists that Melody is still alive and that she will find her, to have sex and to find her happy ending. It made sense to me that Gregory should be a foil for Issa, being much more practical and grounded, but to a much more depressing point. He wants to take Issa into the White Mountains to prove that she's delusional and force her to reckon with grief and acceptance. The next day, I started working on a script, and I had no idea how to start it. I tried an opening where Gregory arrives at the trailhead and tells Issa to get out of the car, but she's too busy reading and takes a while to come meet him. I didn't feel that worked, if only because if Issa really wanted to find Melody, why at all would she be distracted? I then tried a version where Issa addresses the audience in her I Want song / opening number, which I liked a lot more. I wrote a good deal of a draft of that song, Sex and a Happy Ending.
Sex and a happy ending, that's my way to go. In romance novels, they always come back from the dead, then they end up in bed, don't you know? There's sex and a happy ending at the end of this track. I'll find my girl alive and well, then sink my teeth into her neck.
But but something still felt missing or off to me. Later on Friday, I called my friend who is also a musical theater writer. He read what I had come up with and gave me some suggestions. Firstly, don't drop that her girlfriend is missing right at the beginning. Leave that as more of a surprise. Secondly, there's one too many things going on in the song between the exposition and the desire for sex and a happy ending. The idea we came up with is to make the opening sound more like she was reading her own romance novel and that she's coming into the woods specifically to give herself the romance novel experience. We also talked about many other options for the story going forward, including a potential romance between Greg and Spoon and the possibility of Melody being the actual leader of the vampires. I'm gonna come back to this in the next video. Anyway, that's my first creative process video for my first musical on this channel. I hope you keep sticking around because this is looking to get very interesting. Signing off, my name is Madeline Sky, and I'm writing musicals. Catch you next time.
There was a time when I cried all night, couldn't sleep till I got things right back in my head.